Hello, my friends. Welcome or welcome back to Shining Brighter. My name is Nick. I want to say a genuine thank you to everyone that watches my videos. By no means, I'm not a big channel or anything. Part of that is that I don't really advertise a lot. I just started to, but mainly my channel is meant to help people. That's what I want to do. So I hope that for those of you who do watch, that you're getting something from this. It would really help out if you would like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you like what I'm doing or if there's something else you'd like to see. Helps me kind of guide my content. So today we're going to speak about leadership, and specifically what I see as the erosion of leadership, especially here in the United States. Now, obviously, from my perspective, it's going to be concerning policing, but I think the problems in general that I'm going to talk about are pretty much universal, and can apply just to about anywhere. So the biggest problem we have in policing today is the intrusion of politics. Politics are garbage, in my opinion, and anybody that's willing to lose a family member or a friend or a significant other over politics, what are you doing? Politics are nothing but a means to divide us. They're not there to help us in any way. It's really a bunch of garbage as far as I'm concerned. You know, that's not me saying you can't have your beliefs and you can't feel strongly about something. But in general, when it comes to politics, what I see is people listening to a politician and kind of just adopting that person's platform and point of view, and then letting it interfere with their friendships, their relationships, their lives, their marriages. It's not worth it, guys. Enough about that, though. So politics and policing, there is no room for it. It detracts from the mission of the department. It detracts from the ability of leadership to do their job. It detracts from the sergeants, lieutenants, and mainly the patrolmen from being able to do their jobs effectively, because they're worried about, are they going to get in trouble because of the politics surrounding the issue. Mainly when it comes to leadership, that's where it creates the most problems. See, it used to be that we had civil service, and it's still around, but many towns got away from it. And the reason many towns got away from it was because there were a lot of chiefs that were staying beyond their welcome. And I understand that there need to be safeguards in place to have somebody removed if they're no longer the best for the department. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But civil service did offer protections in certain regards that prevented politics, in large part, from really affecting policy and affecting day-to-day operations and morale, which is the biggest problem. So when we had a civil service chief, he was what was called a strong chief. He was completely in charge of the department. He set the policies, procedures, as he saw fit according to what was going on in law enforcement. And he also pretty much decided who was getting hired and who wasn't. Now, we still had a process in place where the selectmen were the appointing authority, but by and large, they listened to him. He was such a strong chief that, in a way, that governing body, in my case, a board of selectmen at the time, were kind of afraid of him. And he, in many ways, kind of ran the town, so he got his way. Now, he was beyond his prime. He did need to go. And I understand the town wanting to get away from that. However, when he left, this is where the politics began, because there was a captain in place, and then there was a sergeant who was looking to become the chief. I'm not saying that the captain was necessarily the right choice. He was very similar to the outgoing chief, but at the same time, it was a political move that put the sergeant into the chief's role. Once that happened, he was then beholden to the people that put him there, i.e. the selectmen, and he was not an effective, strong chief. He was what we called a weak chief. And they still listened to him when it came to recommendations, but they didn't necessarily always go with his recommendations. And there certainly were people that were hired and promoted due to political whim, and the chief had to go along with it because that's how he got himself in his spot. So that started the breakdown, and you ended up getting people that probably shouldn't have even been cops that became supervisors. So the department, even though it was still running okay, it definitely was on the decline. And it became personal at that point. They started deciding who they liked, who they didn't like, and they would treat people accordingly. They would go after the people they didn't like. Sometimes they'd actually go after the people they liked as well. They'd punish you if you didn't do and see and say what they wanted. And what they wanted was not always right. So fast forward, that guy or that administration is moved out and retired, and the town moves to a contract chief. Now, this is the next worst thing that's ever happened to police departments, the contract chief. And the idea was that the town would now have a means to remove a chief were he not performing well, or if the department was not happy with him. And there still had to be cause, had to be legitimate, but the ability was there. So you solve the problem of the long in the tooth chief, but now you've created another problem. Now you have a guy who can't be 100% effective at his job because you get a 3-year contract. Every year and a half to 2 years, you have to start politicking and kissing butt for your next contract. I get it, it's survival, but it doesn't make it right. So very quickly, once that happened, things declined rapidly. A lot of people were just so happy to have the old administration gone that they had rose-colored glasses on and were happy, but I saw very quickly, how things were going. And the political favors just kept going and kept getting worse. And we were hiring people that shouldn't have been hired, promoting people that shouldn't have been promoted. And when you promote people that shouldn't be and put them in places of authority and power, you really start to lose your good people. I personally was heavily targeted and punished and held back because of a lot of political favors being done instead of taking care of the right people. Instead of promoting the best men, they were promoting yes men. And the reason that is because the chief was weak, very narcissistic, immature, very insecure. And I'm not saying these things to throw shade or belittle the man, because I don't know what things in his life shaped him that way. I'm just merely speaking the truth so I can get the point across. So when you have somebody like that and they can't, they're really not qualified to do the job of chief, but they don't want people to see beneath the veil and realize he's not qualified. What does he do? He doesn't promote the man or woman that's the best fit, because that person becomes threatening to him. And then he risks getting exposed. So what does he do? He goes for the yes man or woman. In his case, he was very transparent about what he would do. He had made a deal with the head of the union to get them on his side. And in exchange for the head of the union keeping union issues quiet, he would keep him out of trouble. And when you start down that path, you're locked in, because now every time that person screws up, you have to cover for them, because you're covering for yourself, because you made that decision. God forbid you take responsibility, say, hey, I was wrong, we need to fix this. No. The narcissist and the insecure man will bury the problem. And that happened in some spectacularly bad ways, ways that it shouldn't have. So, excuse me. So now you have the boss at the top of the food chain who's not a leader, he's a boss. He doesn't know what he's doing. And he's threatened by anybody who does and might make him look bad. So now you've got no leadership. Now it comes time for promotions. And again, instead of the best man or woman, you're getting the yes man or woman. And it was bad in our case. He was very easy to see his pattern. He would find new people that came in, and they would learn quickly to kiss up to him and, get on his good side. And then what he would do was he would build their resume for them. All of a sudden, this first year patrolman, who shouldn't be doing anything but patrol, maybe now he's moved up to a firearms instructor, or put in as a detective, or trained to become, a specialist in some way. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but when you have senior people that have been there, paid their dues, and are better fits for those things, those are the people that should be getting it, regardless if you like them as an admin, or if you're threatened by them. Because by not promoting that person, you hurt the whole department, because you're wasting their skill set. So he would build these people their resume, and then well before they were ready, if they were promotions, he would have them take the test or the assessment center. The assessment center is another load of crap. An assessment center is when you hire an outside company to create a test based on your town's call volume, population, etc. And then you sit down with a group of either retired or active captains, chiefs, lieutenants, sergeants, and you have 4 or 5 10 to 15 minute scenarios where you sit down in a room with these people and they give you the scenario and you role play how you would handle it. Very subjective. And they also wiped out any other criteria that could have helped you, like prior experience, education, achievements, awards. None of that mattered. They just took a score. So, and essentially what happens, and it's widely known, though it's not being challenged, is that the chief will hire the company, sit down, tell them, these are my candidates, this is how I want them scored, and regardless of how they perform, they get scored accordingly. And that happened several times before I left. And sadly, the last time it happened, I knew the 3 people that were going to get the top 3 scores because they were the favorites. They were also younger guys. So nobody believed me. They just thought I was sour grapes because I had been burned on my promotion opportunities twice. And then the test hit, and guess what? Those 3 guys got the high scores. Suddenly people were coming to me going, I thought you were just sour grapes until it happened to me. Now I see it. And there has always been a 5-year minimum requirement for experience before you're allowed to take a sergeant's test. Well, that was waived, ironically. And the 3 top scores, one I think had about 4 years experience, and the other 2 had 1.5 years each. And those people were promoted over people that had 10, 15, and 20 years of experience and had done so much more. Those 3 people were not ready to be off of patrol, and now they're supervisors over all these other people. So what's the message that sends to the people who made a career there and now are essentially locked out of ever getting promoted? Unless there's a fluke and everybody leaves, or something horrific happens, which I don't wish for. But now you've burned all those people. Now morale's gone. And when that happens, the person and people responsible, the chief and the governing board, who did this knowingly, now all of a sudden they're getting mad because the department is not functioning the way they want, and everything's going bad. So now what do? Instead of making up for their failures, now they start punishing everybody because they're mad because they didn't think about the repercussions or the effects on the good people. They didn't think how it would affect them, how it would affect their families, how it would affect morale. So there you go. Leadership has eroded, destroying morale, destroying confidence, destroying the care people had for doing their jobs. And like I said, this isn't just specific to police. It's definitely pervasive worldwide. Very much so in the private sector. So to all of the bosses out there, there are some good bosses. There are some true leaders. Unfortunately, they're few and far between. But to the bosses out there that this applies to, do better. Get out of your own head. Being the boss doesn't mean that you have to be the smartest person in the room. It means that you need to be smart enough to find the most qualified people and put them in the right positions so that the whole department benefits. That's what your job is. Your job is to advocate for your department, not for your department to just serve you. So, in closing, my friends, know your value, know your worth, respect yourselves. I see you all for who you really are, and I love you all for it. If you're not being treated well and respected at your job, time to move on. Have a great day, everyone. I love you.